I'd love to say hello to everyone here. I'd like to introduce Mr. Danny Ballan, who's the author and producer of English Plus Podcast Network. Danny worked as the educational technology team leader in SABIS Educational Services for 6 years. Now he has his own online-based business, online courses, and podcast network. Please, Danny, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. First of all, I'm glad to be here and I'm actually honored because I got this invitation. It's not just an opportunity to share my work and my experience, but at the same time, just maybe encourage some other people to go ahead and start their own podcast. So maybe after this webinar, you will be encouraged to start your own podcast. I'll be happy to help at any moment. Now, let me tell you what we're going to do today, because as I told Dr. Nasruddin earlier, our neighbors started to redecorate their house, so there's going to be a lot of noise. Obviously, there's not going to be noise because I recorded the webinar, so you can listen to it without noise. I'm going to play the recording. If you have any questions, you can send these questions. If we have a chance to answer these questions at the end of the webinar, if we have time, actually. If we don't have time, for that, I can still take your questions and I will answer all of them. Maybe I can send them to Dr. Nasruddin, or you can contact me if you have any other questions. I can make maybe video content for you. If your questions need some more clarification, I'd be happy to. So now, without further ado, like I say in my podcast all the time, let's start with the meaty stuff. Let's start with the important things we will talk about. And I will share my screen with you and I will start this video, and it has everything. We will start with an introduction, then we will get our hands dirty. We will have some hands-on practice in Adobe Audition, some concepts that are important in recording, mixing, mastering, etc. And we will finish up with some things that have to do with promotion and how to publish your podcast. So let's start. Let me share my content. Here it goes, and let's start. Welcome to Podcasting Essential Guide and Lessons Learned. Now, let's start by telling you what we're going to talk about, right? We're going to talk about a couple of things, actually a lot of things, so we need to hurry up. So let me tell you what, we're going to start first talking about planning. What are podcasts? Why would you want to go on and podcast? Who is your ideal listener? SEO friendly title and description. We will talk about the format of your podcast. What kind of format do you have? The length of the episodes. We will talk about the podcast graphic. We will talk about the podcast music. And then we will move on to talk about production. We will talk about recording equipment and software. We will talk about some basics that you need to know about before you start production actually. And then we will have a production walkthrough. We will record something together and I will guide you through from the very beginning of the recording, and I will tell you things you need to know about recording, things you need to know about editing, mixing, and mastering. Now then we will talk about some other things that have to do with publishing and distribution, the hosting services, the metadata, the website, the analytics that you need to care about, and the podcast directories. What are these? And then of course we will talk about promotion. We will talk about promotion, the CTA or call to action. We will talk about social media, monetization, podcast launching, and then we will talk about some lessons learned from English Plus. And finally, we will finish up. Hopefully, we will have time for some questions and answers. Now, let's start with the very first and maybe the most important question, because trust me, I've seen a lot of people who were like, what is the meaning of podcast? Is that YouTube? Is that whatever? No, it's not. Podcast is different from other mediums or other ways to communicate with people, that these things are a little bit more informal and a little bit more intimate. You might say that, yeah, people also use headphones when they listen to YouTube or they watch YouTube videos. Yeah, but it's not the same. Here, this person is speaking to you. You can't see this person. You're just listening to this person. It's much more intimate. What else? Podcasts are usually specific. They're not general. There can be some general purpose podcasts, but usually the good podcasts are those that are specific. They talk about specific things. They talk about niches. Now come to the next question. Why would you want to podcast? Why would you want to become podcasters? Why podcasting? Well, because it is intimate. because it is intimate. This intimate relationship with the listeners, it's invaluable. Now, you can see this picture and you can see this lady enjoying listening, maybe to English Plus, who knows? I doubt it. I don't think anybody would be that intimate while listening to English Plus, especially in my grammar episodes. But anyway, why would you want to podcast? You would want to podcast because it's an intimate medium. You get the closest possible to your listeners or to your audience. Let's talk about them as audience. That's a lot better than social media. And that's not all. It's also free. You are free to talk about whatever you want. What else? It is a strong platform. If you are thinking about building your own platform and be out there for people to notice you and to be on the radar of other things, maybe this is just a platform for your business. It doesn't always have to be just free and intimate and the personal aspects of it. It can be also business. It is a strong platform you can think about, and also you can use it to make money. Well, if you want to start, what is the very first question that you need to ask? You need to know who your ideal listener is. Who is your ideal listener? But before you do that, you need to know who you are. You need to ask yourself. Everything starts with you. Remember that, because it is a podcast. You're going to commit yourself to this project, and it's not going to be easy if you're not talking about things you're passionate about. So my first question to you, what are you passionate about? What truly moves you? What problem are you trying to solve? Are you just podcasting for fun, or do you have a problem that you're trying to solve? Answer these first and then check the podcast categories. Don't start with the podcast categories. Don't go to the podcast categories and see that, yeah, we have about crime, we have about news, we have about business, etc. So maybe I will talk about business, maybe I will talk about news, maybe I will talk about language learning or something else. Before you go to the podcast categories and try to figure out what podcast category is right for you, it's not this way. It's the other way around. What do you want to talk about first? And then you go and see which podcast category fits what I want to talk about. But who is your ideal listener? That's still the question. If you look at all these pictures, you might think that one of these people might be my ideal listener, maybe two, maybe four, maybe 10, maybe all of them. This is not the way to go. You would want to pick only one. Picture just one person in mind and have this picture, whether it's a mental picture or it's actually a physical picture, and post it, put it in front of you somewhere, or at least imagine it. And when you want to record your podcast, talk to this person, because that will make your message clear and that will make your podcast episodes consistent. So the questions you want to ask: what is their age, gender, likes and dislikes? Where do they hang out online? Where do they shop? And what career do they have? Now that you know who your ideal listener is, the next thing is to think about a title. And you will want to go SEO friendly with the title and the description. Now, SEO, that's search engine optimization. That is to make Google happy. If Google is happy, you're going to show on the search engine. But in the podcast directories, and mainly we're talking about Apple here because it is the key player in the market, listeners can search for your show title and for your episode title. And obviously the author fields. You will have to give some thought of your show title and your episode titles. The episode title is fine because you may try different things. You will have a different episode soon. So it's not a big deal if you have a bad title for one episode. But for the show title, you have to be extra careful because we have what I call for show titles, the good, the vague, and the ugly. What is the good? Let's say that I want to create a podcast about translation, and it's going to be some nuances, some secrets maybe. So I can call it Translation Secrets. Of course, you need to check if anyone else famous has this title, so you wouldn't want to take it because people will confuse you with that podcast and it will be difficult for you to rank. But let's say that nobody else has this podcast. You can claim it for yourself. That's a good title. I'm not talking about fancy titles. I'm talking about good SEO friendly titles. The good one here is Translation Secrets. Let's talk about the vague. You might want to get a little bit creative, and that's not a problem, to be honest. But if you get creative and say from A to B, from this place to that place, wow, that's pretty good. But what do you mean? When I see a podcast called From A to B, what does that mean? What are you talking about? Are you talking about traveling? Are you talking about, I don't know, from A to B, moving from a company to another company, moving to, I'm not sure. Or I can't tell right away that you're talking about translation, and that is definitely going to hurt your SEO ranking. But what else? the ugly, Danny's world. Well, that's definitely the worst. What is the meaning of Danny's world? What are you're going to take me there? You're going to tell me about, what is it, tokens, the Lord of the Rings world? What are you talking about? Is it Middle Earth? It's not. You don't have to be, you can't be that ugly with your titles unless you are a celebrity. Now you've decided on what you want to podcast about. What about the format and length of your podcast? Let's start with the format. Now, for the format, you have a couple of ideas. You can start a solo show, you on your own, nobody else. If you are an expert, you have to be an expert or at least a passionate person about the thing you're talking about, because expertise or passion will get you going and will keep you going. You might want to go for interviews. An interview is a good idea to drive traffic because the people who you are interviewing are going to share this episode on their social media and it might go viral. Who knows? We have group discussions, especially when it comes to pop culture or something like that. Maybe, just you have a group and you're going to talk about Game of Thrones, for example. That's possible. And finally, there's also the listener engagement. If you have an active community on Facebook, let's say, or some other social media platform, and you might want to start something with your community, just they can send you some questions and you might tell them, please record the question as an audio file, and then you can play the question and then you answer the question based on the community. So these are the different formats you can start with. But then the big question, how long should my episode be? Now, here we will have to talk about frequency versus length. Now, if you're planning on releasing one episode per month, and this episode is about 3 minutes, that's not enough because people are not going to stick around, are not going to follow you for 3 minutes a month. But if you have it like once a week and it's kind of like 10 minutes, that's great. But again, ask yourself the persona. Is your listener persona a person who listens to your podcast while commuting? So that might take them maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. So if I have my podcast episode 20 minutes, they will listen to it. But is my podcast about some financial advice for some busy executives that are not going to listen to me for more than 5 minutes? So maybe I should stick to 5 minutes. But the golden rule, I'm going to give you the X formula. Don't stretch the episode more than necessary if it is not interesting anymore. Now let's talk about the graphic. Now the graphic, the king is obviously Apple. And we should do what Apple demands. Here for the graphic, they demand at least 1400 by 1400 pixels, 72 dpi. And by the way, I'm saying at least 1400s and maximum 3000 by 3000 pixels. So don't go over that. And now let's talk about the best practices. You need to be consistent with your brand, same colors, same font. Use one font type, that's better. Don't use too many fonts because that's kind of distracting. You need to have a readable thumbnail. Sometimes when you design your podcast graphic, it's going to show as a great one on your computer screen. And maybe you bought yourself a big computer screen. So when you look at it, it's wonderful. But when you bring that down to a thumbnail size on a mobile phone that doesn't have that big of a screen, it's not going to be that impressive. And if relevant, add your photo. Now, let's move on and talk about show music. You want to choose some show music. And for this one, I just need to tell you one thing. Be careful of music copyright. Don't think that you can take a piece of music because it's classical. It is composed by Mozart, and Mozart died about 200 years ago or maybe more. So I can use it. There's no copyright. Yes, there's no copyright for the music, but there is copyright for the recording, because the recording happened maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So it's still copyrighted. You can't use it. And that goes for everything else. You can't just pick some famous classical music and think that it is not copyrighted. It is copyrighted. The music itself, if you can play it, if you just bring along an orchestra and play it with them, yes, definitely, it's not copyrighted. You can use the music, but you can't use the recordings. You can license music from sites. I'm going to show you the sites now: premiumbeat.com, audiojungle.com, audiohero.com. You can license some music that you like from these sites, and you can use it pod safe, no problem at all, because these are licensed. You just pay for the license just once. You don't pay like every year or something. Now for the recording equipment and software. Now you look at all these beautiful microphones and you ask yourself, which one should I pick? Well, the first question you should ask yourself, should I pick a condenser microphone or a dynamic microphone? Well, a condenser microphone you need a quiet place and even an acoustic treated place because condenser microphones pick up a lot of noise. And even if somebody's speaking in the other room, you might hear exactly what they're saying. Well, it might be a good idea to spy on other people, but it's not a good idea to record podcasts if you have a noisy environment. If you have a noisy environment, you should go for dynamic microphones. Now, dynamic microphones in layman terms, this means that this type of microphone allows you to record in most locations without the quality of the room being a large negative factor in the recording. It also enhances the warmth in your voice due to something called the proximity effect. The closer you get to the dynamic microphone, the warmer your voice is going to be. But that is for you to decide. If you decide to go for condenser, no problem. Go for condenser, but make sure that you have a quiet environment to record in. Or if you don't have that option, go for dynamic. And then you have XLR microphones and USB microphones. Now, if you don't want to buy an audio interface, go for USB microphones because USB microphones are plug and play. That's it. You just plug them in your computer and you can start recording. But for XLR, you need an audio interface because you need to plug in the microphone in the audio interface and then from the audio interface to your computer so the signal flow is longer. Yeah, I have to admit that the quality is better, but it depends on the investment you're willing to make. And then the question is, should I go for cheap or expensive? Now, some of the mics you can see in this picture are like $150. Some of them are about $7,000. But the question is, and especially now we live in Lebanon, and talking about dollars is something that causes allergy to a lot of people, myself included. So it is not about buying an expensive microphone. You can start with what you have. If you have a microphone in your headset, in an old headset, try it. If nothing else works, try your phone, try recording to your phone. But just one thing that I want you to steer clear from, that is the internal microphone in your computer. That's the worst choice ever. And why I'm telling you about microphones now, because that's the first investment that you want to give serious thought to. Now, some people might ask, why is it important to have great sound in a podcast? Well, why is it important to have good food in a restaurant? I mean, people go to podcasts or they listen to podcasts because they want to listen. There's only audio, nothing else. You can start out with whatever you want. And my personal advice, if there's nothing else, start with your mobile phone because usually mobile phones are good, are okay. I'm not going to say good. Of course, any of these microphones are better. But the very first investment that you want to make, let it be a microphone. But when you want to decide and buy a microphone, know that there are condensers and dynamics. There's USB and XLR. You might want to make an investment and buy an XLR microphone, and then you figure out that you have to buy an audio interface for that to work and a special cable for that to work. So if you don't want to make that great investment, USB microphones are perfect. There's this Blue Yeti or the Shure USB mics. They're perfect. The Shure are dynamic. The Yeti is condenser. Now here we talked about microphones. What about software? For software, we have free Audacity and Pro Tools. First, we have paid software like Pro Tools, Adobe Audition. By the way, we were going to see the walkthrough in Adobe Audition, but the ideas, the concepts are going to be the same in everything else. Audacity, Pro Tools first, etc. You have Logic Pro, Hindenburg, Journalist, etc. And then we have the basics, right? The basics, the digital audio file. What do you need to know? The file formats, MP3, M4A, WAV, or AIFF. Well, the most important two are WAV and MP3. You need to know these things because you need to do everything before you send out your podcast as a WAV, because the WAV is flexible, and WAV, because it's uncompressed, it can handle all the changes because it has all the data. It's not compressed yet like an MP3. You compress your file as an MP3 after you finish working on it because you want to compress the file to MP3 before you want to send it out to podcast directories. All right? What else do you need to know? Should I have stereo or mono? Well, if you have music and you have two channels right and left, you should have stereo files. Or if you don't have anything else but speaking, and speaking is mono, most microphones are mono, so use mono. Don't use stereo because stereo is just double the size of mono for no reason. And then let's talk about the phases of recording. Now we have the pre-production. You prepare, obviously, the content. You prepare what you want to talk about. You prepare the place where you want to record. You set everything ready. You test everything out. Everything is working. That's the pre-production, especially if you're having guests, right? And then you have the recording, or what we call in the biz tracking. And then you have editing. And then after that, you have mixing part. And finally, you have the mastering part. We will talk about these in the walkthrough that I will show you. And now, where to record? A very important question. You need to find a quiet room, the background noise, the computer noise. If you put the computer on the same table that you have your microphone on, is there going to be a lot of vibration? Test these things out. You need to find a place as quiet as possible. You need a dry acoustic place. The absorption that is from the acoustic foam that you can have on the walls, if you can. If you can't, you can have some blankets on the wall, or not on all of the walls, just in front of the microphone and to the sides, because that will absorb the first reflections and you will not have echo or reverberation. And then record the room tone to analyze the noise. That is very important, but you will see it in the walkthrough why it is important. Now, we'll talk about production here. All right. The production walkthrough, we'll talk about recording, the proximity to microphone gain, best practices for recording. Then we will talk about editing, natural speech speed. We'll talk about mixing, the noise reduction, the Deesser, the compression, the EQ. Then the mastering, we'll talk about limiting and the dynamic range. And now I will leave you with the production walkthrough. So here in this walkthrough, let's create a small episode together and let's see some of the things that you need to worry about, or at least you need to think about when you want to create an episode for your podcast. Now, first thing, I'm going to use, of course, Adobe Audition, but it's not about Adobe Audition, or if you use Audacity or any other program, any other DAW. The idea is that the concepts that we're going to explore together are applicable on any DAW you might think of. So first, let's start by creating the file. I'm going to create the file, create a new audio file. Now let's start recording. I'm going to record something and I'm going to intentionally speak a little bit louder so that I have some clipping. I want you to notice the levels that we have right down here. Now, if I start recording, well, you can see that even I'm not talking, I'm not saying anything, there is this level of room noise. As long as we are somewhere below 6, we're fine when we're recording. But if we go above 6, or even worse, if we go all the way up here above -1 and we get up to 0 and more, we will have clipping. And I will show you what clipping means and why it is so bad. So I will continue recording. Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. This is the first episode that I want to tell you about how clipping doesn't work. As you can see, I hit this red threshold a couple of times, and this is really bad. If your microphone gain is too high, just turn it down a little bit. You don't want the microphone gain to be that much high, or you wouldn't want to be screaming as I was doing in the microphone. Now, what is the problem with clipping? Let me show you what. Now, if we go to this waveform here, and I want to zoom in a little bit, I will zoom in first on this part, or any other parts that doesn't have clipping. If we zoom in, and we zoom in a little bit more, you can see that there is this natural shape of the wave when it takes all the points. That's the resolution of the audio, but that's another story. But the idea is that we have those curved shapes, and that is natural. Now I'll go to the other peaks. Any other peak you can think of, look at the curved shapes. Here we have curved shapes. But if you go to a place where we have clipping, and I will zoom in here, and you will see that we don't have curved shapes anymore. Here we have a curved shape that's just about being clipped. It was not, but this one is clipped, this one is clipped, this one is clipped. I will zoom out a little bit so that you can see it better. You see here, this part of the audio is clipped. That means it is not there. The system cannot recreate that for you, and therefore when you listen to it, you will find that there is something wrong. First of all, it's very annoying for listeners. It's not a pleasant way to listen, and of course that might even break your headphones or your speakers, but definitely that's not a pleasant thing for your listeners. So here, if you play that again, I'll zoom that out again so you can see the clipping. Now, here if you play this part, that's okay. But look at this one. New episode from English Plus Podcast. Now, you might think it's okay, but trust me, it's not. If you play that loudly, you will see the difference and you will hear strange artifacts on your speakers that might even break the speakers. So you don't want to do that. The remedy to that, or how you can fix that, you have two ways. Now, obviously, the good way is to turn down the microphone gain until you get to a level that is comfortable. When you speak a little bit louder, you wouldn't go over maybe -6 or -5. That's the maximum you can get to. Or if for some reason you don't want to turn down the gain of the microphone, speak a little bit softer so that you don't have any clipping occurring. Now, obviously, I will delete that because that was really bad. And I will start another thing, and I will show you another technique I use when I record. Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Pod. Oops, that's wrong. Welcome to a new episode. That's too loud. Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about grammar. So, if you notice, here I made a couple of mistakes. Now, at the beginning here, and it happens, of course, all the time, just you make mistakes, you want to delete parts, you say things that are too loud, just like here, and I want to repeat because I don't want this clipping to occur in the final. I can't fix it. Nobody can. If you have clipping in the recording, you can't fix it, period. Files that are like 30 minutes long or 40 minutes long or even longer, it will be very, very difficult to look for mistakes so that you can try to fix them. So to do that, this finger snapping thing is a lifesaver. You can spot the mistakes right away. You will save a ton of time by doing that. I recommend this. I know this is not necessary, but if you don't want to waste a lot of time, trust me, this is the way to go. Now I'm going to remove that again, and I'm going to record a part from an episode I recorded the other day that was about ancient Greece. I will try not to be perfect, as I am usually not perfect, of course, but I will try to make a couple of mistakes so that we can use those mistakes to do some editing later. And I will do something else. I will intentionally step away from the mic so that my voice is going to sound a little bit softer. That's not a good thing, of course. You will need to maintain the same distance between you and the microphone at all times. Now I'm going to record the part that talks about when did Greek civilization begin. So let me start recording. When did civilization begin? Oh, I made a mistake here. When did Greek civilization begin? The first Greek civilization developed on the Mediterranean island of Crete around 22,000. Oh, 22,000, it's 2200. Damn. So that is my final disaster. As you can see, there are a lot of places where I made mistakes, but I can see them. I can see that I made a mistake here. I can see that I made a mistake here, another one here, here, and here. And that is why I told you it is important. This finger snapping thing, I can go quickly to the place where I made a mistake and I can delete this mistake and fix the problem. Now let's listen to the first mistake. Now here, let me start. I will just zoom in a little bit. I don't need this part, so I will remove it. When did civilization begin? Oh, I made a mistake here. When did Greek civilization begin? So here you see, civilization begin. Oh, I made a mistake here. When did Greek? So I can start from this one here. So I will delete this first part. When did Greek civilization begin? The first, maybe I don't need that. I will silence this part. Begin. The first, you see what I did here is that I found that the distance between these two sentences is a little bit long. So if I listen to it again, civilization begin. The first, too much. I want this to be a little bit smaller so that we have natural speech speed. We don't want to make it too close. We don't want to go like this. Begin. The first, you see, it's too fast. Begin. The first, I want to keep this natural distance for natural speech speed. So here, if you listen to it again, civilization begin. The first Greek, makes sense. Greek civilization developed on the Mediterranean 22,000, it's 2200. See, I made a mistake and I talked to myself as I do a lot. And here, you wouldn't want your listeners to know about what you say to yourself, right? So here, what did I say? Crete around 22,000. Okay, I have the problem with 22,000. So it's not 22,000, it's 2,200. Around 2,200 BC. Okay, so here from around, I can see that all this part is not needed. Around, 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 around. Here I can see that I started A from here, and I can go all the way here, and then Crete around. I can leave the space that I see is okay for the natural speech speed. Crete around an island of Crete around, maybe a little bit faster because that's within the same sentence. An island of Crete around 2200 BC. This, you see that we make a lot of noises with our mouths, and we can delete those. We don't want our listeners to hear what we ate for dinner the night before, or to know whether we're hungry or not, or we drank enough water before we recorded or not. You would want to remove all these artifacts. This civilization was called Minoan. Now here, because I trust that I snap my fingers a lot, I don't need to listen to all that every single time. I just go to the places where I can see there might be problems, and I delete that. As you can see here, the level is different. I intentionally stepped away from the mic so that I can make two different levels. That's not good. That's not good at all. I'm definitely not telling you to do this thing, but I'm just showing you that it can happen. And when it happens, we'll fix it in mixing. But I'm just saying. So here we will continue. Actually, I'll fast forward to finish all this. You don't need to hear that. You get the concept of editing. And I will be back to talk more about mixing and mastering. Okay, so now I kind of cleaned up the speech, or I kind of cleaned up the dialogue, let's say, and I will do something that I recommend, especially if you have any kind of room noise. I want you to record silence. I want you to press record. I will go right at close to the end of the file, stop right here, and I will record silence for about 10 seconds. All right, that's enough. Now, it doesn't have to be at the end of the file. It can be at the beginning of the file. Of course, maybe that's a little bit more intuitive, but you have to do something like this just to record the noise on its own, because we will use this noise signature to remove the noise from the whole recording. So now we will do the next step, and that is to start mixing. Now, to start mixing, we will do a couple of things. We will first get rid of the S's, but first let's get rid of the room noise. So here we have the room noise. I will just play the room noise so that you can hear it. So we don't want to have this included in our recording, right? So we can go to Effects, and in Restoration, Noise Reduction, Restoration, we go to Noise Reduction. Bring that here. That's the noise reduction. Now here, in almost every DAW where it has noise reduction, there is something that's called capture noise print. The program needs to know what noise do you want me to remove. And that is why we recorded this part of only noise. Here we select this part. It has to be 10 seconds or more to give better results. And I will capture the noise. Remember, I selected this part, and now I capture the noise. Now the plugin will know that I want to get rid of this noise from my recording. Let's try that out. Greek civilization developed on the Mediterranean island of Crete. Now here, if we listen to this part, the first Greek civilization developed on the Mediterranean island of Crete around the first. As you can see, the noise is reduced a lot. I'm not saying that we got rid of the noise altogether. In some cases, we can't get rid of all the noise, or it's not that simple to get rid of all the noise, but the noise is reduced, and we can see that in the noise itself. Here, if you listen to it with the plugin turned on and turned off, even you can see, just like there is a good amount of noise eliminated. There's no noise here. So if we apply that, but let's make sure that we apply that to the whole thing. So the first thing we did is we got rid of the noise. As we got rid of the noise, we don't need this part anymore. We can delete it. Now, the next thing we will try to do is to get rid of the S's. Now, that is what we call a de-esser. The S is very bad. It hurts the ears. If you have a lot of S's, as most people do, we all have a lot of S's when we speak. This S hurts the ears, and you don't want your listeners to be hurt, right? You want to de-ess those S's. Doesn't mean that it's going to leave the S's out and you are left with no S's, no, but it's going to make them a little bit softer. Let's take a look. Now I will choose the whole thing. Maybe I will see a place where it has a lot of S's and begin. The first Greek civilization, that's perfect. The first Greek civilization. The first Greek civilization, we have some strong S's here. So let's go to effects, amplitude, and compression. We have the de-esser. That's the second important thing. Let me just bring it to the screen around here. All right. So here, if we look at it and we play and developed, the first Greek civilization developed, you can see that we already have some gain reduction. It is reducing this very specific place, very specific frequency range that usually has the S in it. Now, if it happens that you have your S's in different places, you might change the bandwidth and the center frequency if you want to fine tune it. But usually it works the way they put it. And here, all you have to do is to find a good threshold to reduce the level of the S's. Now I'll play that again. The first Greek civilization developed, you see, if I go all the way, that's going to be really bad. It's actually taking a lot of other things, not only the S's. So I'll go back to somewhere around 30. I'll try 30. Greek civilization developed, the first Greek civilization developed, maybe somewhere around 30 is good. I'll apply that as well, but I will make sure that I don't apply it while I'm selecting just one part because it will apply it only to this part. I will select the whole thing and I will apply my changes. And here we have it de-essed as well. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to level this thing up. We need to amplify the sound, of course. We need to make the sound a little bit louder. But here we have a problem. If we go like most people do, most unexperienced, I will have to say, people do, they go and use something called Normalize. Because Normalize, you can find it in almost any application anywhere. So people know Normalize. Normalize, that means it's going to boost the levels of my recording. So I will do that. Why not? Not so fast, because that is not going to do anything in this case. And I made this recording specially to show you that Normalize is useless in this situation. It is good in other situations, I will have to admit. But let's try Normalize here. If I go to Normalize, I go to Effects, Amplitude, and I go to Normalize. I want to normalize this whole region, or actually the whole audio, to -1, which is very loud, actually. I'll apply that. Oh, no. Actually, what happens is the opposite. It didn't boost. It reduced the level of my audio. What happened? That is supposed, Normalize is supposed to boost the audio, right? Yes and no. Normalize doesn't boost anything. Normalize looks for the, I will just undo that. And here you can see the problem is right here. The problem is right here. I want it, or what I want from it to do, I'll go right here so that you can see it up close and personal. You see, I want the program to normalize to -1, and it looks at the whole audio or the whole region that you chose, and it looks for anything that is above. If there is anything that is even louder than -1, it's going to bring it down to have -1. And if it brings this point down by half a dB or 2 dB or whatever, it's going to bring down everything else the same. Forget about Normalize. Forget about the people who tell you Normalize is the best way. It is not. What you want to do is compression. Compression is something else. Compression, you choose a threshold. That is in a nutshell. To be honest, compression is a very, very big topic, and it might take us hours to talk about compression, but I will try to explain it to you as simply as I can. Now, compression, it goes and searches for a threshold. And this threshold, let's see, we're talking about levels here, right? So if I look at the levels here, what I actually want to do, I want everything to be the same level of this soft part. So let me look at the level of this soft part. Well, actually, it's kind of right here. So it's kind of between 21 and 24. So if I bring everything above 21 and 24 to the same level, I will have the same level for almost all my audio file. Now, at this point, you might think he's talking gibberish. We don't understand what he's talking about. I know. But the thing is, that is what compression is about. Compression doesn't look at the peak of this audio file and treat the rest of the audio the same. No, it doesn't. It looks at the audio in different ways, compresses the loud parts so that it becomes more consistent with the soft parts, so that when you then normalize, or we will do something better that is limiting, when we use the limiter later, we will have all the parts at approximately the same level. We'll go to the effects one more time, and also amplitude and compression, and we'll choose single band compression. I'll bring this to the screen. What we need to care about, I will go back to the default, which is zeros everything, because I want to show you the best practices. We don't have numbers. I'm not going to give you a formula now. Use this formula and your tracks are going to be great. You will have to look at the track. You will have to look at the wave the way I did and see that here I need to go for somewhere around 24, maybe 30. And then that is my threshold. So I go to about 30 dB. I'm telling Audition, look at this audio file and see if there is anything that is louder than 30 dB. I want you to bring it down. I want you to compress it. That's what I'm telling the program. And for the ratio, there is a lot of theory about ratio. For now, for dialogue, I want you to go for 2.1. 10 milliseconds for attack is good. The release 100 milliseconds, maybe 80. I prefer 80 more than 100, but that's a preference. 100 milliseconds fine. For now, I don't want to add any gain because I'm going to use a limiter later. But if I apply this, look at the magic that happens. You see? Here we have almost everything, almost, I'm saying, because remember, it's not going to be perfect, but it's a lot better now. Now, if I just go back and press on this infamous normalize, and I normalize everything, it's different now because I have now the loudest part are not a lot louder than the others. You can't see the difference. You can't see a real difference between these two. So with that being done, we are left with something that is very important as well, and that is EQ, which is equalizer, of course. And EQ is another thing that we can spend hours talking about. We're not going to spend hours, obviously. We're going to be very fast about it, and we're going to apply a parametric equalizer here. Let me again bring that to this screen. All right. What we see here is the range of human hearing. We can hear from anywhere from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, right? But to be honest, we don't actually hear anything below 100. We just feel it, and that is the bass. Now, it depends on your voice, whether you're a man or a woman, whether your voice is deep or whatever the characteristics of your voice. It depends on the kind of microphone you have. It depends on a lot of things, actually. So again, we don't have a formula for, just go to this frequency and turn it up or turn it down. We can't do that. But I have a couple of things I want to tell you that works for almost everything. And that is definitely at the beginning at the low range. Now, even when you use a pop filter, sometimes some P's and B's and some plosives escape the pop filter and they're very difficult and they add to the bass, that bass that you don't want, especially in a podcast. We're not in a dance club. In a dance club, yeah, you might want all the space. It's nice. But in a podcast, you don't want to hurt your listeners' ears. That's the main goal, right? So you would want to do the very first thing, and that is go to this high pass. That is going to cut everything that is below 40 hertz. That is the idea. That is by how much? That's the point of the 24 dB per octave, but that is a technical thing. What we need to know is everything that is below 40 hertz is going to be cut. We're not going to hear it. So if we have anything of those plosives, those bad plosives we talked about, it's going to be cut. And 40 hertz, I guess it's a little bit low. I need it to be up all the way maybe to 70 or 75. I don't want to hear anything that is below 75. So now if we listen to that, huge, brightly painted palaces, a magnificent palace at Knossos may have belonged to King Minos. The Minoans in well, that is okay. That is good. Around 75. Again, as I'm telling you, you will have to listen. You will have to check whether 75 is good or 60 is better, 65, whatever. So it's you have to use your ears after all. Now, somewhere around, I'm going to use this one, somewhere around 300, we usually have bad frequencies nobody needs to hear about. We can turn these a little bit down, maybe not at this. And here we have something at the end, and that is you can bring it right up and you get it all the way to maybe around 5,000. That gives a little bit clarity. So that makes the word you speak a little bit clearer. But as you can see, I am not using drastic changes. I'm not going for something like minus 10 or plus 15 or something. It's the maximum is 6. Don't go anywhere above 6 because that's going to be drastic. I usually go for 2, 3, depends because the change is subtle. It doesn't have to be a big change, but it enhances the sound of your recording. So here, let's listen to it. And trade suffered. People even forgot how to write. When did Greek civilization begin? Well, that's a little bit better. So I'm going to apply that as well. And here, after we finish with our EQ, we are left with mastering. Mastering takes years of practice. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I've been doing it for a very long time, and I'm not even close to being a master. But what I'm saying is, if you have money to send it to a mastering engineer, well, do that. That will cost you like $100 or even more. And now, with the circumstances we have in Lebanon, I don't think we can afford it, not even $1. So, better do it yourself. You have to think about only two things. I just want to talk about two things related to mastering. If you know about these two things, trust me, your podcasts are going to sound a lot better than you think. The first thing is you need a limiter. I'm going to choose something else, not from Audition. I'm going to choose a limiter from Waves plugins, and I will go and choose this very simple one, the L1 limiter. Now, the reason I'm doing that, let me bring this all the way here. Now, what we need to tell this limiter, like almost all limiters, but I brought this limiter because you can see the levels here, that's why. I want to tell the limiter that I don't want you to go anywhere above -1. I don't want any clipping whatsoever. And then the threshold, I will decide on the threshold based on listening. The threshold is going to increase the level. Let's start playing. I'll start playing from the beginning. When did Greek civilization begin? The first Greek civilization developed on the Mediterranean island of Crete around 2200 BC. This civilization was called Minoan after a legendary ruler of Crete. That sounds okay. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe 7. I will go for the threshold of 7. Named Minos. The Minoans lived by. I will try to look for the softer parts because I'm pretty sure that the softer parts will need a little bit more. BC, Minoan civilization collapsed. Mycenae, a city on mainland Greece, rose to power. Now, I have to tell you that this part is never going to be any good because I was far away from the mic. And this far from the mic, you will never get any good recording. But we just did that just to show you the difference between compression and normalize, right? But I will go somewhere in between, maybe 8. And I will apply this. So you can see here, we have loud, but at the same time, it still has differences. That's what we call the dynamic range. The dynamic range is the difference between the loudest part and the softest part. And you need to have a healthy dynamic range. That's good for the ears and for the brain of a human being. You don't want to hurt that, right? Don't go over the top. If I go back and just choose this, I will just undo this. I will go back to effects. I will choose this L1 that was in dynamics, waves, L1 limiter mono. Now, if I go all the way, say to 20, which is way too much, When did Greek civilization begin? First of all, you can see that the voice is, or the audio quality is trash. And if I hit apply, you can see that all the audio is squashed now. There is no difference whatsoever. It's all at the same level. There's no dynamic range, and that is very, very, very bad. And also, you can listen to that, but I must warn you, turn the volume down a little bit because that's going to hurt your ears. First Greek civilization developed. There is no clipping. Nothing is above -1, but the audio is trash. So you wouldn't want to do that. You will want to go for something reasonable. Yes, you want to have your podcast loud enough for people to listen to from any device, but at the same time, you don't want to overdo it and have this bad experience, bad listening experience. So I will go back again, not 20, we said around 8, maybe even 7. I even prefer 7 is good. That makes sense. Farming, fishing, and seafaring. Their rulers built huge. See, the sound quality is okay. And again, I said that I did not record that with perfect conditions because I know that most of us don't have perfect conditions. And that is not an excuse not to podcast. Use what you got, use a little bit of techniques here and there, and podcast to your heart content. This walkthrough, yes, it is in Audition, but trust me, the concepts that I showed you in Audition apply anywhere else. You can use them anywhere you go. And now let's go back to our main webinar. Well, congratulations. Now you have your first episode. It is ready. Now, what about the hosting services? You need to host your podcast somewhere. You can pick up one of these hosting services because you need an RSS feed and you need a place, a server that's going to serve your podcast to the world. Now, there are podcast hosting companies. Some of them are free and some of them are paid. I will definitely want to warn you against free companies like Anchor and Breaker because they have control over your content and you don't really own the content. So there's a very important thing. If you really want to invest into podcasting, you can try Spreaker. They give you 5 hours and 10 episodes for free. You can start there. And then if you like it, you can upgrade. If you don't, you can stop. It's up to you. But definitely own your content. Then another thing is the metadata. The metadata, that's very important. You need to have ID3 tags and you have to add an episode description that helps people know what this episode is about, the episode and the season number if you have seasons, but don't put the episode number in the title because Apple hates that. And then you will have to mention whether your content is clean or explicit. Now for the website. It is very important to have a website, create a home base, because after all, you want all these listeners to come back to a place, and this place has to be a website. Now, there are a lot of website hosting companies there, like you see in the picture, SiteGround, GoDaddy, Green Geeks, etc. These are paid, of course, and you can have your website created using WordPress, which is obviously the most common, but you can also use free services like Blogger, the Google's Blogger, and you can use WordPress.com, not WordPress.org. WordPress.org, you need a hosting company. WordPress.com, you can use that for free. The problem about using those free services is that it's going to be your website name dot their website name.com. So it's not going to look that professional, but that's not a problem. That shouldn't stop you from starting. You should have this home base. And then on your website, you should post your podcasts or your episodes. And on all podcast hosts, you can embed the podcast episode in a post on its own, and you can transcribe. That will help your SEO presence because Google cannot read audio files, but Google can definitely read text. And then we have measuring. After you do all that, after you launch your podcast, you should measure your presence. You should measure your downloads, where are people downloading the most, etc. Well, there are podcast host analytics, which are great in most cases, or you can use PodTrack, which you can use for free to track the downloads and everything else and where people come from, or even more, you can use Google Analytics, which is the best of all of them. And then we have podcast directories. Now, after you have all this, you need to post your podcast on different directories. Now, one directory to rule them all is Apple. Apple is definitely the most important, Apple Podcasts, and you can post your podcast there. Now, podcast hosting companies are going to tempt you. Just click this button and we will post it for you. Now, you can do that if you don't want to go and search for yourself how you can do it by yourself. But when you do it yourself, you have 100% control over your content. Do it. Find how you can do that and do it. The most important two places you need to consider are Apple Podcasts and Spotify. These are the two most important places or podcast directories, and then comes everybody else. Now, you have your podcasts. What about your calls to action? Are you just telling people things? Are you telling your listeners what you want them to do? Because you need to do that. It's not enough just to create great podcast episodes. You need to tell your listeners what you want them to do, where you want them to go. Where do you want them to go? You want them to go to this site, you want them to go to Facebook. What do you want them to do? Do you want them to like, to share, tell them? Now, if you tell them, they might not do it. But if you don't tell them, they will definitely not do it. So tell them, and then expect that some of them, maybe a few of them, will listen to what you said and will do what you want, which is why you're doing the whole podcast in the first place, while you're building this platform in the first place, right? And don't be shy to sell things, because it's a business after all. The brand is you. When you're selling yourself, your image, that's not a problem. That's why I'm investing all this time in creating a podcast. I don't have to create. I'm just creating it for some reason. Maybe because I want to sell something else and I want just to build a platform where I can sell something else. Or maybe the podcast itself is the product. Doesn't matter, but don't be shy to sell. It's a business after all. And social media, a couple of things I have to say about social media. Use your listener persona for the same reason, the same listener persona, and post accordingly. Post to these people. Focus on two social media maximum, Facebook and Twitter. That's it. The others, you may have a presence, but you don't focus on them. And be consistent. If you post once a week, post once a week. If you post every day, whatever. Now, for monetization, I know that in Lebanon, it's not easy to say monetization for anything online, but you might find some people who will want to sell ads. So you might have some automated ads, some host-read ads. Automated ads are for companies, and that is not exactly easily available in Lebanon. But the host-read ads, you might find somebody who wants to put an ad on your podcast, and they just tell you about their advertising message, and you can read it. And then you can have sponsors, and then you can have patrons. You can have patrons, and those patrons may pay a certain amount of money, maybe donations or whatever, to keep your podcast going. And there's also affiliate marketing. Now, finally, for podcast launching. Now, launch soon. You have everything ready, launch soon. Don't wait, because trust me, episode 10 is definitely going to be better than episode 1, no matter how long you plan for episode 1, because you're going to learn along the way. Yes, start right, start with a good idea, start with some good techniques, but doesn't have to be perfect. Launch soon. Try different strategies. Talk to your listeners about these different strategies. Ask them, do you like this? Do you like that? Did you like it when I change it this way? The episode, I mean. And they can tell you, some of them, maybe not everybody responds, but some of them respond to you, and some of them tell you what they liked and what they didn't like. And that will help you, especially at the beginning. As to be honest, it helped me making English Plus better. And I'm still using that. I'm still asking a lot of people about the changes I make. And I keep changing, but now not big changes. So try different strategies, talk to your listeners. And you can appear as a guest on other podcasts. That will help. That will help your podcast grow. And you can build an email list. Now, one last thing is the mistakes we made, the mistakes actually I made. I'm on my own. And here I will mention 3 mistakes. I admit that these were bad mistakes, but that didn't stop my podcast from reaching a good level now. And I'm hoping for even better levels in the future. But the thing is that at the beginning, I had inconsistency problems. I would post 5, 10 episodes in 2 weeks, and then I would stop posting for a month. And then I would come back and post 15 episodes, and then I would stop. That was inconsistent. That hurt my ranking at the beginning. And then I didn't have clear CTA. I didn't have clear call to action. It was just like I would go there. I wouldn't tell them to do anything. And that caused some of the people not to come back or not to go to my website, which I had back then, but it was not the branded website that we have now for English Plus. But anyway, people didn't do what you wanted them to do because they couldn't have guessed what you wanted them to do. I didn't have a clear CTA, and that was bad. And I made the wrong investments. I didn't invest right away in a good mic. And the quality, the audio quality was not that great at the beginning. I'm not saying it's perfect now, but it's a lot better than in the past. I made the wrong investments in some software and some maybe computers and other stuff, but the most important investment ever is the microphone. Buy that first and then buy everything else. And now with that being said, if you would like to learn more about English Plus and about me, there's EnglishPlusPodcast.com and find out what I'm doing for English Plus. And you can also find more information about me on my website, www.dannyballan.com. And then I have my Udemy online courses. You can check them out. I have my published books and my published music. You can find all these on my own website, dannyballan.com, if you're interested. And I have a special gift for you because you stayed all that time listening to me. I have a gift for you, and that is a free coupon to my PowerPoint masterclass on Udemy. The coupon code is LEBUNI, and I'm going to send you a link so that you can just take the link, go there. But please do that before April the 27th because the coupon expires by then. Now, that being said, that is everything I wanted to share with you. And now I'm all ears. If we have time, I'm all ears. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm afraid you don't have time, Danny, but I so much
I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
I'm
That was
sorry. I
lovely.
took up all the time, and I took some of the time from the next presenter. So
You
I'm really
should
sorry
be
about
sorry.
those 5 minutes.
We should be thanking you for all of this valuable technical information that usually we wouldn't find in a 1 hour session. It is appreciated indeed. So maybe I'd leave questions for individual communications, you and the students interested. We thank you also for the coupon. That was a surprise for us. And we'll make sure to make use of it before the deadline. Happy to have you here on board, and we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.